Are you okay if we just do this?
Yeah, that's all right.
Sorry about that. Yes, it's a little bit strange for you. I'm a little bit more like all my experience has been in the university, so I'm a little bit more like a university lecturer than Kate. So this topic is about, as you can see, about interviewing. And there's a few PowerPoints here. The PowerPoints, I usually put the PowerPoints, you've got them there, that's good, got them easy up. So the interviews come as part of the process. It goes something like recruiting, selection, interviewing is one method of selection.
Yeah.
And so it's not the only method of selection, but it's probably one of the most important ones. And what we're trying to do is to get ourselves some information about the person who wants to come and work for us and see if we think they will be suitable. The person that's come gets some information about the organisation that we work for, and when the interviewing is done and the other selection methods are done, then is when we start a contract or an employment agreement. So we're saying here it's sensible to use more than one method, not just an interview. The interview one is probably the most important, but there are many other methods. This is just a little warning that says people always, of course, try to make themselves look perfect when they are filling out an employment form. And these are just some comments that people say. If an interviewer is saying something like that, then this is perhaps what they really do. And so we're using that. Sometimes you can say, if they're saying, I'm adaptable, they might have changed jobs a lot. Or if they say, I'm on the go, I'm never at my desk. There are some questions, of course, that we can't ask. And we'll talk more about those a little bit later. So you can't ask a person if they have ever been arrested for stealing. And then sometimes there are other ones that you really sometimes I get a question like this: you and your manager will need to attend together. Does overnight and weekend travel present a problem for you? Or you might feel uneasy about that, of course.
So the interviewee can say she's not comfortable to answer the question,
Yes.
or
Yes,
just
of
don't
course.
answer the question.
Yes. That's fair. Yes. If you're asked to lift something heavy, you got to be careful how you ask that question to the person. Would your husband or would you be willing to relocate? So if you were sitting and going for a job, somebody might say, would you be prepared to relocate to Christchurch? You can probably ask that one. And then it says, if this job required you to be fluent in Spanish, then are you fluent in Spanish? And maybe you'd have to be careful how you ask that one. So that's just a few examples there. So if we go to this handout now, what I'll do with these, if it's okay with you, I'll go through these handouts with you,
Yeah.
and then you can read them yourself, because it's quite a lot.
Okay.
And then next week, we will talk with you and Janice, if she's coming, more about what is in this that will also be in your assessment. So
Okay.
that will help you to focus on the assessment. Okay?
Yeah.
So if we go to this one that's got...
The
yeah,
other one.
That's good. And if we keep turning, go past the PowerPoints. And the first one is just that short one there.
Oh. This one.
Yeah, okay. So this person is saying that the interview often is a lot of talk,
It is.
isn't it? Yes. And sometimes, of course, if you are applying for a job, you don't know what they're going to ask you, and it can be quite difficult. Sometimes when employers are talking to you about a job as part of the interview, they talk too much and say an awful lot about their organisation, and they almost forget that they're talking to you to find out there's a job. This little short piece of the article is also saying that you can be quite careful doing an interview, but it still doesn't really increase your chances of being getting a successful employee. It's actually saying, turn the page. I'll try and explain that sheet for you. So what this sheet is saying, down the left-hand side, left-hand column all the way down, there's these different forms of what they're calling predictor, which is saying the method a method we could use to find out about a person who we are interviewing. So the first one is cognitive ability, which is quite long words, but that means their ability to think and do things like that. The next column there where it says validity, if you just used cognitive ability questions, the chances of you getting a successful appointment would only be 0.51 or a half.
Is that 51%?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There are some others there. The work sample tests, that's where they give a person a little problem to do or something like that at the interview. The next ones they talk about are structured interviews. That means when the interview is carefully planned out and all the questions are written. You go through them. We must look at those a little bit later. So if you look down those lists, there's all sorts of ways of doing them. And so the best ones are this business of test for cognitive ability, work sample tests, structured interviews, peer ratings, that's some information you might be able to get from the person's peers, and the job knowledge tests, and so on. The next column, figures, show us if we use more than one of these methods, how much will this improve our chances? So we start with the cognitive ability one each time, and then if we added work sample tests, we would increase our chances of getting a good person to 63%. And so on. Now the main point is it's quite frustrating at times to think about this, that if we are interviewing people and we don't know the people particularly well, at around about between sort of 50 and 60%, you could flip a coin. It's the same thing. It's a 50-50 odds. It's a 50% chance you could get it wrong, a 50% chance it might work. So it really just emphasises to us how you can't really put too much reliance on these sort of methods. Excuse me, I'll just check that machine is going, because sometimes it doesn't always start for us, but it is. It is going. Excellent. So turning the page, then we look at quite a complicated page, which is talking about interview skills for employers and managers, saying hiring new employees is a gamble, but if you can create a system of recruiting and interviewing and so on, the chance that you might get a better chance. So the first point they're making is we are looking to make sure there is a job match between the job we want done and the skills and people characteristics that we think will match this job. Then the second half of the page has got a whole heap of questions, excuse me, which they're saying could be used in any interview. And they should be asked in every interview. So you can read those, all the different questions that they're saying could be answered. They could be asked. If you go to a lot of interviews, sometimes they will say, what do you think one of your strengths? What are you good at? And then they might say, what is something you could improve? So that's in there. Work history. And so on. Then there's a little shorter article here. And there. Where this person, she is suggesting things we can ask to talk about what motivates a person applying for a job, because it's important that they be motivated. So describing a work environment where you are most productive and happy, that's a question you could ask. Further down, you could say, what goals, including career goals, have you set for your life? A long, long time ago, when I was a lot younger, I went for a job, and one of the questions was, what is your goal? What is your future goal? Or something like that. And I said, I would like to be a boss person by the time I am age 40.
That's very specific.
Yes, sounded good, didn't it?
I have a friend. She went to an interview in New World.
Yes.
And it was Victoria, the owner
Yes.
of New World, who
Yes.
did the interview.
Yes.
And she asked her, because she just came from the Philippines,
Oh, yeah.
and she didn't know anyone And when she was asked, in 5 years' time, how do you see yourself? Something like that. And she
Yes.
said, I see myself as someone running this place.
Ah. So what did Victoria say to that?
And Victoria said, oh, you're funny. But you didn't know that Victoria is the owner?
No, no, that's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes when there's an owner, you really can't say that.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's talking about motivation. A little bit further down, it's reminding us that we are trying to find out what motivates the person we are interviewing. We don't want to hire a candidate who likes working alone for a customer service job, of course. Next page is where they will often ask about interpersonal skills. Now, if you go for a job, and sometimes in the application form and everything, they will talk about this must have good interpersonal skills. So that means they get on with people one-to-one or with a group or something like that. And so there's quite a list of questions there they suggest you could ask to cover this. Then communication. Everybody wants to know about communication. They always say must have good communication skills. That's right. And they try, there's another whole lot of questions there that you can ask. That one about 1, 2, 3, 4 is quite good, where it says rate your communication skills on a scale of 1 to 10. And give some examples from your past work experience. That would be quite a good one.
Does it affect when you ask for communication skills and you are interviewing someone who is from a country who doesn't speak English well? Does it, because there's this human right thing.
Yes, yes, of course.
Does it?
It's, I understand that it is reasonable to look for and select on the basis of English speaking if it's in a job dealing with people a lot, because if that's the case, they couldn't be understood.
Yeah.
The people couldn't talk to you and you couldn't talk to the people. But sometimes, like for instance, if it was an office or an accounting job, then they might not have to do very much communicating, just doing the work, the invoices and the things. So sometimes they might do it that way. Because Filipinos and Chinese and people like that are very, very good with calculators and numbers and everything. Better than most New Zealanders.
Isn't it? I just noticed that when Filipinos start coming for the building
Yes.
thing in Christchurch,
Yes, yes.
and I think the employers put more weight on the skill and
Yes.
not the English communication.
Yes, they have to be a little bit careful that they can understand some English because of safety and doing something the right way,
Yeah.
so that the booking doesn't fall down. Yeah. That's quite difficult, isn't it? We worked in China, we could speak Chinese, of course, so, but they wanted us for their English, I think. Yeah. So then there's another article, this one here, that's got interviewing more. some suggestions. Make the interview reasonably informal, relaxed, not too stiff and proper. Ask questions carefully so that people understand what you are saying. Then this article has about halfway down, it has quite a lot of questions. First one, coping questions. So this is asking if a person can solve problems not too badly. And then there's some questions there asking for examples. The next one down is for tolerance. Is the person able to be a little bit patient or deal with something that's going wrong? Then decisive. Can people make decisions quickly and take actions? Some questions for that one. There's a lot here. Spoken communication. Can the person clearly present information? And what we call energizing questions. Are they energetic? Do you know what I mean by energetic? Full of energy.
Yeah, I had an office, she's full of energy.
Yeah.
So if she's not in the office, it feels like no one's in there.
Nobody's here, right? That's good. And sometimes these days, in these times, there's a lot more policy and procedures that we have to do in our work usually. And then also problem solving. And they keep on going. Goal setting, commitment to task, and then some more questions. Now these are just lots and lots of questions that people can ask. They wouldn't ever do all of them.
Yeah.
It's just suggestions. Then there's for talking about, the next heading goes there, interviewing questions for salespeople. And then the closing question. A lot of people go to a interview who don't have an answer to this question because why should I hire you over all the other candidates? So what's different about you that should make me hire you? So if you have 4 or 5 people that you're bringing in for interviews and they've all got a diploma in business and they're all female and they're all quite good communicators and then you're really saying, well, which one am I going to choose? And so this question is saying, why you? Why will I choose you?
Some interviewers do the other way around. Why should I not hire you?
Yeah.
How would you answer that question?
Why should I not hire you? It's not a very good question, is it? Really, very good. But the only thing is, if you had something you could possibly say, you might say something like, if you, perhaps you might not want to hire me if I said I was going to ask for extra holidays or something like that. It's a very hard question to answer.
Some other people said, I might be too overqualified for you.
Yeah. I wouldn't answer that way. I'd say you might be, but I wouldn't say you were. Then they've got a list of illegal questions, but these are illegal in the US. And then they've got some suggestions about what people are looking for if they want to come to your company. Sometimes at an interview, they will always say, "Have you got any questions?" You know, when you get, and the experts always say you must always ask at least one or two questions. Don't just say, "Oh no, nothing."
Yeah. They say that if you ask questions, they think that you are really interested.
Yes, yeah, and it's one way of showing them you know something about their company too, isn't it? Now the next page has got almost a complete page. It says 9 pitfalls of employment interviews, the things that can make them not work so well. So there's personal attitudes. So you could say, like if I went for a job in Christchurch, for instance, at the company, somebody might feel, oh, they've only come from the West Coast, they won't know enough, you know, or something like that. So that would be a personal attitude, which it may not be right, it might be quite wrong, but it's their attitude, and that's how they'll do it.
It's like they already judged you.
Yeah, they're already judged it, yes, yes. Sometimes they say in that people interviewing, they're a wee bit worried they're not going to get anybody, so they take one that perhaps they should have, did things like this.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens. And sometimes interviewers talk too much when they're interviewing.
Especially if it's a panel interview.
Oh, yes.
It takes so long.
Yes, yes, yes. They all seem to have to do their thing, don't
Yeah.
they? Yes.
I had an interview with 3 people for this job. It went for about 50 minutes.
Yeah, it's a long time.
It is
It's a long time. Yeah. So, there's a list of 8 or 9 things there that can make an interview go wrong. So, that's something to read later on, perhaps, too. I think, I haven't actually seen your assessment, but I think it will probably, it's the sort of thing they might ask, is what are some of the weaknesses of the interview method, or something like that.
Yes,
So, is your assessment there, is it?
yeah.
You might have had a wee look.
I have a copy. That's so there's a case.
Yes, I see, yes. Yes, so this is where it sort of comes up. It says here, 4 different recruitment methods. So you might choose interviewing, but then you would have to say something about how good each method is and what the advantages and disadvantages are. Yeah. So that piece that we've just been looking
Yeah. It was June. It's the second.
Yes, it's a wee way.
Right. So it's
Good. We will, I'll go over that more with you next week,
okay.
and hopefully the other people are here. some more information on improper questions, but we've already seen most of those. Same sort of things. Improper and illegal ones. Now the next piece here is actually a little bit complicated because there's a lot of words and a lot of things. Now this is talking about what they call structured behavioural interviews. And they're used to try and get rid of some of the problems of unstructured interviews. They're trying to get rid of bias in people's personal thoughts. And so there's a list there of what are the strengths of the structured interview. So if in your assessment you were saying a structured interview would be a good idea, then those would be some of the strengths. And it also gives you, across to the next page, some types of interview questions. And there's pages and pages of them. So I will let you read them, but the one thing I want to show you is down the bottom of the page, they sometimes use rating scales of 1 to 5, if you can see down the bottom. And so if they're doing this, they will, for number 5, they will be asking a question, and if you gave them exactly right answer, you would get 5 points. If you gave them a don't know answer, you only get 1. That's what that's saying. And they call those rating scales. So they just keep on going, and they go on and on and on with different questions and different answers. And then they come to this business where they talk more about rating scales, developing rating scales. Yeah. So this is just what we were talking about before. This is saying where you have to decide how, if you're going to use a 1 to 5 rating scale, what is your top, what do you expect for the top mark, and then what you might expect about halfway down, and then what you would say is a poor answer. I'm not so keen on 5 rating scales because 5 always has a halfway and 3. So you get 1 or 2, 3's halfway, 4 or 5. People often go for the halfway. Better to have it 4 and then there's no halfway.
Can you use rating scales when asking for behavioral questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's quite difficult to do this, but you have to say for number 5 what sort of behaviour you are really wanting, and suggesting what it would be. It might be, you might have words like must be able to think independently, must be proactive, in other words, do things, and so on. it's talking about using an interview panel over the page, like you did when you went for your interview. You had 3 people on the panel.
Yeah.
They do that. They do that to remove what they call personal bias. I mean, it was supposing that I was just the one interviewing you, and I had in my mind something about a person I was looking for, and that would be a personal bias. But if you have a panel, I'm only a little part of it. I'm not the whole thing. What I've seen, you can tell me if this is what happened with your panel. Sometimes when you have a panel, they all have, they started out with a list of questions they want to ask the person, and they divide the questions up, and they say, you can do question 1, 7 and 9, and you can do, and they're so busy trying to look at the next question they're going to ask you that they're not really listening for answers, and they don't seem to give themselves any chance to ask another question that might have come from what they said.
The interviewer had, I think, they divided the questions,
Yes.
but it's more of like someone is in charge with the question regarding communication.
Ah, yes.
Someone is in charge
Right.
with the behavioral. So there's 3 different areas that each of them ask. But the manager took, like, he's the one who took almost
Yeah.
the time.
Yes, that happens.
the
The other ones just sit there. The most I haven't had many job interviews, but the most I've had was 9, I think, on a panel. A whole group.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Oh,
Too
that
many.
would be so uncomfortable. Like,
Sorry?
so they would ask everyone the same question.
Well, they asked questions. They did a little bit like you said. They had obviously had, like, one person was going to ask about, say, finance, and one person was going to ask maybe about sales, or so they did that. It was longer than 1 hour. Now, if we have a look at Kate's, the other information from Kate, I'll just again, I'll show you what this is. Now, these ones are talking, first of all, there's the PowerPoint ones, talking about what a job interview does, which is the sort of thing we mentioned before. Then she talks about improving validity and reliability of the job interview. So this is telling us something about a structured job interview. Structure the interview to focus on requirements of the job or the organisation. Use a panel of trained interviewers. So that's what that's saying. Then they're talking about interview types, structured and unstructured. Then especially structured. And then the stages of a job interview. Some planning, getting the interview started, and so on. Then some types of questions, the next 2 PowerPoints on that page, have types of questions. So you can say that open questions usually mean you are asking for an opinion or describing something. A closed question is usually can be answered with a yes or a no. Like, have you passed diploma in business? Yes or no? No opinion.
Yeah.
Then, that's her last PowerPoint for the induction, that being the next stage after a job. Then I must have put these the wrong way around, I'm sorry. I missed a page there by the look of it. There's a page there that has the scoring process and possible interview problems. And then a whole great big handout on structured interviews, another one. So that's like a very good handbook almost about how to do structured interviews, preparing for them. What to do during an interview. And after the interview. And then they've got this model of the whole process. Now I have one or two little video clips I can show you, I think. Might just add a wee piece for you. This is what someone else is thinking about it.
For employers, it's really important that going into a skills shortage market, a tough market, them to find the best candidates, that they are going to be on display during the job hunting cycle. Candidates talk to other candidates. So they need to be courteous, they need to have good communication, they need to be on time for interviews, and they need to be prepared. It's no good to just turn up on the day and wing it. Talk to staff, talk to people that will interact with the person who will get the role, and find out what is important to them. So do a whole 360, and then come up with structured questions. If you move off that question, that's fine. But you need to have those questions that will help you assess whether that person is really right for the role.
I would take a four step approach to the interview, an agenda if you like, and the first step would be to build rapport. A lot of interviewers think they have to go in and be kind of quite hard in the interview. But the truth is, if you get the candidate relaxed, you're going to see much more the real candidate and the real style of them, which will give you a much better indication of whether they are the right person for the role. So go in and build a little bit of rapport before you start the interview. Step number 2 would be to ask the questions, and for that you want to go through their resume in chronological order and get a real feel for the achievements they've had and check why they've left every position and really delve there, because they may have some issues that they're looking to hide, so be sure of that. And also then ask them some behavioural questions around some of the key behavioural competencies that you're looking for. The third step is to allow the candidate to ask you some questions, and this is your opportunity to judge how well the candidate has prepared and to see what kind of thinking the candidate has. And answer those questions truthfully. Your job is to sell the company and to sell the job to the candidate. Even if you don't like that candidate, they're going to tell their friends, they're going to tell the public that that's where they've been interviewing. So you want them going out with a positive image of you and your organisation. So do talk truthfully and honestly and passionately about the role of the organisation. And the fourth step in the interview process is to really close it off. Give the candidate a good sense of what the steps are from here. Give the candidate some honest feedback if you feel comfortable to do that, both positive and perhaps a little bit of constructive criticism that they can work on. But do give them an indication of the timelines that they can expect to hear back from, and then stick to those indications.
Once you've identified a candidate that you wish to interview them and move them through the process as smartly and as quickly as you can. Also bear in mind that you're more than likely not the only person that's interviewing that candidate if you're looking for strong talent. So making sure that you are also selling your organisation from the minute they walk in that door. Don't keep them waiting if they are on time. Make sure that you have got an interview room prepared and ready to interview. Have your questions prepared as well. And also explain the process. People don't like uncertainty, and the more that they can know upfront, the better for everyone involved. And then also secondly, not everyone that you interview is going to be suitable for your role, and how you disengage with that candidate is just as important as how you first engage with them. So, let them know that they weren't successful as soon as you possibly can, so they walk away from your organisation with a positive image rather than one that they will never apply for another role, because you may want to revisit that candidate in the future.
One of the most common mistakes employer makes when they're interviewing a candidate is to go in and do all the talking themselves. So my tip would be to make sure that you listen as much as you talk, and that you really get an understanding of what it is that motivates the candidate, so you can judge whether this is the right position for them as much as they're the right candidate for you.
The other thing is reference checking. It's amazing how many people don't do good reference checking. If somebody's given you a mobile phone number for a referee, ask them for a landline. Go through the switchboard. Make sure you can check the person's name and title and their area of responsibility before you talk to them. And have a few good, well-prepared questions, because you're taking up the time of the referee. So don't muck them about, be really clear, be grateful, and use that time well.
How to interview a job candidate. An applicant may look like the ideal job candidate on paper, but you need a face-to-face interview to get a sense of whether this is the right person for the job. You will need a job description, experience questions, style questions, and behavior questions. Optional, a fact sheet and references. Step 1. Start the interview by introducing yourself, giving the candidate a description of the job and your company, and telling them how the interview process will be carried out. Give the candidate a fact sheet about your company. List statistics that might be of interest to the person who will be filling the position. Step 2. Ask the job candidate to tell you about themselves and to explain why they're interested in the job. Step 3. Ask the candidate questions about their experience and how their past experiences can be applied to the job. Ask about recent accomplishments, projects, group work, and critical decisions. Avoid asking questions that require a simple yes or no answer. These won't give you much insight into the candidate. Step 4. Learn about the candidate's style of working to help you figure out if they will fit into your work environment. Ask about what they enjoy and dislike about their current or past jobs. Step 5. Ask questions that can help you learn more about the candidate's temperament and behavior in specific situations. Learn how they reacted when their work was criticized, or how they managed difficult employees. Call your candidate's references and confirm the information they gave on their resume and in the interview. Step 6. Don't ask the candidate questions about their age, race, religion, disabilities, marital status, or other topics that are not directly related to the job. Step 7. Wrap up the interview by allowing the candidate to ask you questions about the job or company. Let the candidate know the next steps in the process and when they can expect to hear from you. Step 8. Think about how the candidate will perform and how they will fit into your company, and select the best candidate for the job. Did you know? The U.S. Commerce Department's Minority Business Development Agency estimates that minority-owned businesses employed 5.9 million people in 2007.
Sometimes people say that you can pick if a person is going to be any good in the first 5 minutes that you know them. You watch them come in and sit down. And sometimes people say you only actually need 2 questions. You ask them for a CV, so it's all there, and you, as they come in, you form an impression. And sometimes people say there's only 2 questions. question 1 is, tell me something about yourself. And question 2 is, why should I hire you? I'm meeting 10 people, so why are you going to be better than the other 9? Do you reckon that works?
That would really be pressure to the candidate.
Yeah. It's, you see, when you read that you've only got not much more than a 50% chance of getting it right, you start to say to yourself, well, why go through all those things? Why don't we try it? And some people that I've known, they say they don't take too much notice of doing too many questions. They get what they call a gut feeling, how they feel about them. That, of course, is quite dangerous.
Yeah, how about it? It's our own gut feeling.
Yes, that's right.
How about it? If the interviewee has already an interaction with the candidate before.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's when you have to. That's when a proper structured interview becomes quite good. If somebody it might be somebody that's working in your organisation knows them or something like that.
Yeah.
That's true. I'll play you one more little clip. It's a silly one. It's not particularly serious.
You know, I really enjoy interviewing applicants for this management training course. Go in.
It's not Filipino language here, is it? Might be Spanish.
Yeah, it looks like Spanish.
Would you mind just standing up again for 1 moment? Take a seat. Sorry? Take a seat.
This is quite old. He was a famous
Morning.
comedian, John Cleese.
Good morning. Morning. Do it. Why would you say good morning when you know perfectly well that it's afternoon? Well, you said good morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Oh, yeah. Good evening. Goodbye.
What?
Now. Aren't you never asked me why I rang the bell?
Why did you ring the bell?
Why do you think I rang the bell? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Well, I'm too late.
Good night. Ding, 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 ding. Good night. Ding, 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 ding.
That was me. I could have walked out already.
This is the interview for the management training course, is it?
Yes, yes, it is.
Oh.
Good night. Ding, ding, ding.
I don't think I'm doing very well.
Why do you say that?
Well, I don't know.
Do you say it because you didn't know?
Well,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Right.
I'm sorry, I'm confused.
Oh, why do you think I did that then?
Well, I don't know.
Aren't you curious?
Well, yes.
Oh, why don't you ask me?
Well,
Name?
what?
Your name, please, your name.
David.
David. Shaw?
Oh, yes.
David Shaw.
No, Thomas.
Thomas Shaw.
No, David Thomas.
Good night.
Oh, they went back to that again. I don't know what to do when you do that.
Well, do something. Good night. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good.
Good.
You've got very good marks.
Well, I don't care. I want to know what's going on. I think you're deliberately trying to humiliate people. I'm going straight out of here, and I'm going to tell the police exactly what you do to people. And I'm going to make bloody sure that you never do this again. There! What do you think of that? What do you think of that?
Very good marks.
Oh, well, do I get the job?
Well, I'm afraid not. I'm afraid all the vacancies were filled several weeks ago.
That's very good.
Yes. Did you ever hear the television program Faulty Towers, where he had the hotel? No. That was him.
I have watched a clip about Indian interviewer,
Oh, yes.
and in the first thing he asked all the candidates is to write something on the board.
Oh, yes.
Have you seen that?
No.
Write something, and everyone was writing anything that they want, and there's one candidate that really went to the board and write something, the word something. He was hired.
Oh,
So write something.
oh, that's clever.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I think, Jemima, I'm probably going to stop there. I've given
Yeah.
everything there. And then I'll be having a wee talk to Kate about the assessment coming up. So next week I'll talk to you and Janice if she's here
Okay.
about putting this together with the assessment
Yeah.
and the other things. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
Just, only just the two of us. I think it's probably the best way to do it, isn't it?
It is.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much.